Hey guys, a number of constitutional changes have been passed through the cooperative committee yesterday. Um, and before I go to explain to you what they are, I may start by telling you what a cooperative committee is. The Vermittlungsausschuss, that's how it is called, is staffed with important members of both chambers. As one would expect, two chambers of parliament are supposed to control each other. The House of Lords is somehow checking up on the House of Commons and sending back bills, and goes back and forth. So is it the case in America between the Senate and the House. In Germany and also on the EU level, there have been, frustrated MPs who are annoyed by this entire process of debating things and, refining bills. They want to get things through as fast as possible, particularly when it's helpful for their power base. And this is why we have come used to the so-called Vermittlungsausschuss. The most important members of both chambers come together and decide how both chambers will vote in future, or how they will vote on the agreed bills or whatever. This were hardly possible in any parliament with truly independent MPs, and of course the German constitution even says an MP is only dependent on its own conscience. And like everything in the constitution, and I will come to that in a moment, this is not the reality. The MP is first and foremost dependent on the chancellor. Well, now that it has passed this cooperative committee, those constitutional changes that affect 4 articles of our constitution are likely to be implemented. Now, the reason our elites give us is that our schools need to be modernized, and more specifically, they say they need tablets and computers and faster internet and so on and so on. So they have released 5 billion euro, or they have decided that they will spend 5 billion euro to improve our school system. What the changes will do, before I go into details, I'll just give you the overview, is to eliminate the overall federal structure of our constitution, or it will at least muck it up a bit. The reason they give us is that this digital school pact, as they call it, is somehow necessary so that our schools are financed well enough to buy all these computer hardware things. And I have 2 aspects to say about this. I wanted to know how this is preparing them for the job market, because if you run into a computer science department at a university, you will find that hardly any of it requires hardware that's older than 10 years. So furnishing rooms with everything you need to learn programming and so on and so on hardly costs more than $100, I assume, because the basic structure of a computer remains the same, and it doesn't matter if it's a tablet or a mobile phone or a laptop or a tower or whatever you have. A computer is a computer, and the basics that these children or teenagers learn remain the very same. But lessons do require that we spend so much money for new hardware. The second thing is, why is it that the state cannot raise the funds that the federal government can? I don't see any reason why we would rather give money directly from the federal government to the states than to just give the states, and my pipe dream is even local communities, the ability to raise taxes as they want, so that they are more accountable. I believe in local accountable government, and for me, my patron is that even villages could decide to fix a road and then to collect money, and if it's done badly, your mayor and so on really matters, and he will be replaced. So that would be my idea of an ideal democracy, but that's just me, and it's not the most relevant part at this stage of our cultural decline. So anyway, the direction is going the other way. The higher the level, the more remote they are from the ordinary citizen, the more power they aggregate, and the more influence they want to have. And financing and having the ultimate decision what money goes into what regions for what purposes does a lot to aggrandize their power base. Now I go into the four changes. That is Article 104. It reads the defense of economy, equalizing economic power across regions, and stimulating economic growth can justify that the federal government takes on businesses of the states and then does what actually, from the usual constitutional point of view, are businesses of the states. This gives a lot of leeway to basically do everything, and it also opens the door to corruption, because you can actually send money to regions that are held by your party allies. Then there is a 104D, which is again specifically about releasing federal funds to help poor communities. So that again opens the door to all corruption. 125C is about public transport and housing. I have absolutely no idea what this article says, and I can say with certainty that they are up to take power from the state level and will take it to the federal level. So I don't know exactly what changes they will have in the financing system, and I have to come to the next to wrap it up a bit and explain you more about why I'm stumbling right now. 143E is about highways. They are a state affair, like in America. In America, the so-called federal street highways are actually not federal. They are built and maintained by the states, and so supposedly are also our highways. Both articles are written in very arcane language, and this is not how a constitution should read, because I see it as Americans usually see it. A constitution is a document that helps citizens to identify the limits of the state and to rise up when they see an overreach of the state. The last two mentioned articles, this 125C and 143E, about public transport, housing, highways, I have absolutely no clue what they say, because they don't speak in full sentences. They rather reference about other articles and laws. So it reads like, in law this, the provision has to run out by the date this, and in law that some provision that was already abolished will be picked up again and will run until another day. So we have in the Constitution references to ordinary law and even to how long something is true. I don't believe that this is how a constitution is supposed to work, and I must say that when I grew up with an understanding of our basic values, the things that we all agree on, how we should be governed and how we govern ourselves as a people, was largely taken from lip services of our politicians, of our media people, and also my listening to American and foreign people speaking about democracy. once I started to look into it more deeply, I found out that not only hardly anything of this is in fact taken seriously in this country. It is also that I find it forfeited in many places. They all, I mean, the lip services, as I said, they have turned out to be really just lip services, and the Constitution always says everything and the contradiction. So we are somehow left in the dark, and I don't know how important this constitutional changes ultimately are. They just indicate for me the overall change to authoritarian government, because the division of power, and in this case this would be the vertical division, is essential to avoid tyranny. And this brings me back to the school project, because what they are attacking is the sovereignty of state schooling. We have been told again and again that we have learned from history, and what we have learned from history is that our schools, our kindergartens, our children should never ever be brainwashed again with one propaganda. And how we do this, or how we supposedly learned how we want to do this, is that the states are separated, that there is a competition between the member states, so that we learn what systems work best and improve on that. And also we're expecting that one state may be, more left-wing, the other state may be more conservative, and the third state may be Islamist. I'll just leave it at that. So they should run under different ideologies, at least to some degree. And no federal power can sway the entire country and can indoctrinate our country because of this locality of our education. That was the idea. That was what we have supposedly learned from the Third Reich. And now this is what they are attacking and trying to remove. And they will remove it. I can guarantee this. The alignment, the ideological alignment in school is already on its way. And it will worsen, particularly when government spending gets dependent on the federal offices. There is the so-called eternity clause of our constitution. That's Article 79, Section 3, which says that touching the structure of the Federation of States, so what I've just explained, may never be the subject to constitutional changes. So what they have decided on is not just against the constitution, it's a constitutional change, but we are basically the only country, we are the only country that has a clause that absolutely forbids that there may be ever any change to this particular issue. There must never be an attack on how our republic is structured as a federation of independent states, and that the duties and powers of the state shall remain independent. That was the idea, and I think I've talked enough for today. You get the idea. So we are running down the hill again. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon. Bye.